Ladies and gentlemen, the story around Black Myth Wukong is heating up. And I find this to be very interesting that this game of all games is the one that people are choosing to try to make into a culture war battleground. You know what I mean? Because optically speaking, a Chinese developed game is not exactly the kind of game that you would want to turn into a culture war battleground. But yet, here we are. Black Myth Wukong has become that battleground because people have decided to make it so. This article here from PC Gamer starts off very decently. Not going to lie to you. If you read this article for the first 2 paragraphs and just the headline, you're going to think that the person writing this is trying to talk about video games. I know, shocker. Considering that the website is called PC Gamer, and that's probably what you would expect. Yeah, you would think that's what you're getting. You would think that's what you're getting. But they just couldn't help themselves. As always, they can never help themselves. And they decide to make it a thing where they want to just throw in that little bit of activism because they just got to have that activism. So let's see. Let's start it off. Let's give you the full context, okay? It says, my first 2 hours with Black Myth Wukong were a flurry of demanding boss fights, unbelievably pretty characters, and a surprisingly sparse world. Okay. Nothing too terrible. Hands-on with the most anticipated Souls-like not developed from Software, which that is absolutely true. Black Myth Wukong, because some gaming Uranus decided it was in their best interest to attack this game, have now made it through the Streisand effect, the #1 wish-listed game on Steam. Isn't that amazing how that works? Isn't that fucking incredible? You guys band together and you decide to say, hey, yeah, this is going to be our next target that we're going to blame our buzzwords on. We're going to just throw random words of sexism, misogyny, damn near racism in there. But hey, it's all fine and dandy because nobody's going to fact check us anyway, so it's fine. Then it says, we have some real Souls game freaks here at PC Gamer. I doubt that. I have never seen a gaming urinalist who actually was a Souls game freak. Most gaming urinalists that I see complain about Souls-like games and how they're just too difficult and how there should be a journalism mode essentially for these games. But hey, maybe you do. Maybe you do. I don't know. Several of whom are deep in Shadow of Erdtree preparation mode, but I'm not one of them. Yeah, that's being honest, finally. Now here, this paragraph, I want to be very clear about this really quick because I'm able to be as objective as I possibly can, regardless of what the Twitter haters like to say about, oh, you just rage bait, click bait, bait or bait. Shout out to that video I posted on Twitter. For all those people out there, I can be objective. What this guy is about to say, I can respect what he's about to say in this coming paragraph. Let me read it so that you can understand. He says, I like From style of action RPG, but I like to believe that I represent the everyman's experience with them, bumbling through the opening hours, just barely beating bosses on a respectable 9th attempt, often quitting in the final act where things get really tough, and promising myself I'll get back to it. I never get back to it. Maybe that's Cope talking, and I'm just not built for the Souls life, but I do know that Black Myth Wukong is way more my speed than Elden Ring. Now, for me, I can respect what he's trying to say, okay? Because most journalists would not say this. Most journalists would not say, hey, this game is probably not my cup of tea. Maybe I'm just not built for Souls games, which the fact that this person is saying that is a lot more self-reflection that a lot of these journalists actually have. So I respect that he's able to look at himself and just be like, you know what, this is not for me. And that's fine, right? It's better than journalists out there who are like, well, this is just too hard for me. You need to make it easier. That's the people I can't respect. I can respect the people who are like, oh, you know, this is a bit too difficult for me. It's out of my league. But, you know, it's okay if other people are, you know, enjoying it or whatever. That's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. I'm A-okay with this. And I respect this 100%. So for all those people out there who are like, oh, you can't be objective, suck a dick. Okay? Suck a dick, deep throat it because you're obviously full of shit. But let's get into it because this is the part where I can't respect. Okay? This is the part where the activism takes over and it gets ridiculous. It says, if you're one of the many Souls-like fans who rocketed Black Myth Wukong to the top of Steam's most wish-listed games, then you've probably seen it in passing. It is an action RPG loosely adapting the 15th century novel Journey to the West, and the latest of many adaptations, including Enslaved Odyssey to the West. You play as the Monkey King himself, Sun Wukong, taking on the world with his magic staff. It's only the second game by indie outfit Game Science, founded in 2014 by ex-Tencent developers. That's it. That's where you should have stopped. That is where you should have stopped. You're talking about the game. That's where you should have stopped. This is a 2-hour review of the game. The next thing you're about to say has no precedence on the game whatsoever, but you just couldn't help yourself. You just had to get it out there because you're so obsessed with this nonsense. And probably this particular person wanted to get in the good graces of IGN or shill for the person who wrote it, which was Waldo, aka Rebecca Valentine. He's probably simping for her, but that's neither here nor there. So here's the next part. You might remember Game Science as the subject of a 2023 IGN report detailing a history of sexism from one of its founders, as well as a wider company culture of misogyny. That's it. I'm out. I'm done. Like, you are supposed to be writing a 2-hour review of Black Myth Wukong, and in the second paragraph, you just couldn't help yourself and start talking about sexism and misogyny in this company, even though it's been verified before you wrote this. FYI, before he wrote this, it was verified that IGN was lying or purposefully misrepresenting what the person actually said. They were adding words and taking out words of the translation that could have definitely helped in the overall understanding of what the person was trying to say. But instead of just leaving it at, bro, this entire article is perfectly fine. I want to make it very clear. The entire article is perfectly fine aside from this last piece right here. This piece right here that you snuck in halfway through this article has no fucking place in what you're talking about. Zero. It's got nothing to do with the game. Literally nothing. You just threw that in there for whatever reason. It's not like you could have attached Game Science to perhaps maybe their first project. You could have said, hey, if you don't remember Game Science, they're the ones who made XYZ, whatever. You couldn't attach them to that. You had to attach them to allegations of sexism and misogyny because that's clearly the best thing to do. And then you guys wonder why this particular company doesn't want to fuck with you guys. It's the same reason why Kotaku got blacklisted by Nintendo. Oh, I forgot. The Wokies don't like when you use blacklisted anymore. You're not allowed to use blacklisted or whitelisted. They gave some other word for it. I don't know. I forget all the terms that they have. Who knows? But now you understand why these companies blacklist you, why they just don't give a fuck. And then it's amazing that Rebecca Valentine had the balls to come out and say, "Oh well, they wouldn't respond to my my comments about misogyny and sexism." Why? You made it up. I wouldn't respond either. I would just be like, "You're making this shit up. Here's the actual translation." But sometimes a lot of Asian companies and Asian culture in general is very reserved. And you know what the sad thing is? A lot of these psycho journalists in the West, they know that a lot of Asian culture is very reserved. The chances of them getting backlash or the chances of them getting clapped back, let's just say, from the developer or from any of these Asian people, like the chances of that happening is very slim because that's just not in their culture. It's just not what they do. They're very, very reserved. They're not extroverted like that. They're not gonna come out their face and be like, "Bitch, you lying." You know, it's just not gonna happen. They're just gonna move on. So again, I don't understand why Black Myth Wukong has become this fighting ground, but whether you understand it or not, it doesn't matter. Black Myth Wukong is that new fighting ground. It just is. Just like Stellar Blade was the fighting ground, well, now Black Myth Wukong apparently is the fighting ground. I guarantee you guys, and you can mark my words on this, if I'm wrong, I'll openly admit it. but I don't think I'm going to be wrong on this one. Chances are, close to the game's release, you're going to start seeing hit piece articles on this game, and a lot of it's going to have to do with sexism, misogyny, or maybe even throwing a little bit of something else. But it's going to happen because the thing is, I don't think they're going to be able to actually have a way in terms of like racism. Like, I highly doubt they're going to have that cringy hard R capability like what happened with Stellar Blade. So they're going to find anything they possibly can to try to downplay this game. Because now that they know that gamers are attaching themselves to this game, now that they know that it's heavily wishlisted, they're going to try to defeat this game any way that they can. Just like Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade got attacked by all of the mainstream news articles simply because they knew gamers were attaching themselves to that game.